Chicago and the Athletics. But now that you're reset, all eyes appear to be on Vladdy. Putting him aside, is there another guy on the order, specifically, one of the hitters that you have your eyes on that you believe should be relishing this opportunity, considering where the team is, how good they've been playing? If so, who is that guy?
Well, for me, look. They've gotten a lot out of Clement and Addison Barger and Springer and Kirk. And Lucas. To me, it comes down to Bichette and Guerrero. That I think there's likely to be some regression in the complementary players. They've all played very well, but the league's going to make an adjustment to them, and it may take them a little bit of time to adjust back. And in the meantime, it's not that Vladdy and Bichette have been bad. They've not. They've been good, but they're better than good, and they need to drive the baseball. They need to slug, and that part of their game has to blossom right now. And I do think that coming out of the All-Star break, I think that what I would want, and I always thought this with a manager, you've got to come out and force action, force movement. I would start runners. I would get guys moving. I would steal bases. I would hit and run. I think you've got to create movement and not make it passive. Don't make it, base to base and do everything. Try to force things to happen so you get your players jump-started into energy in the game. And so it'll be interesting to see how John Schneider goes out there and tries to manage it, because to me it's all about movement and action when you come out of a 4-day layoff.
Steve, is there one of those guys you mentioned, the first half surprises, that you think is best set up to keep this up in the second half?
Well, Springer, the veteran, at least has some idea about the grind of an entire season. One of the things that young position players need to learn is just, how to grind out 162 games. Even the minor league season is shorter than the major league season, and it's different. Those dog days where it starts getting hot and you're in August, they've got a book on you now where they've seen you a couple times. You're facing those teams the second time around, and they're all going to start to attack the weakness. But I think Barger, to me, was so critical, because without Santander, they needed a left-handed bat to give them some thunder. And, I think that Springer's been the most valuable player, but I think that Barger's been the most important player for them, because you take him out of the mix and what he did and the timing with which he did some of those things, and the left-handed nature of it, which allowed the right-handers on either side of him to not have a right-handed pitcher get into a rhythm where you can start to throw slider, split, two-seam fastball, and you get into a rhythm if you have a bunch of right-handers in a row. So Barger's been big, and I think it's important for them that he keeps going. But in the meantime, when Santander and Varsho come back, they don't have to be better than they've ever been. They just need to be what they've been. And that's for Varsho, a guy that can steal a base, and he's got some thunder. He's going to swing and miss. He's not a big on-base percentage guy, but he plays with heart, he plays with grit. And Santander, he's got to come in and slug. It's what he got brought in for. You don't need him to be more than that. You don't need 44 homers the rest of the season. But can you give me 18 homers for the rest of the season? Can you give me 15 homers for the rest of the season and give this team some of the power they need?
Steve, we're working our way towards the trade deadline in the baseball. So when you look at it, how aggressive would you be if you were in charge of the Blue Jays as far as bringing players in, but maybe mortgaging some of your future assets for that as far as young players?
Yeah, so ideally, I'd love to trade for players that I can control beyond just this season. So not necessarily as a rental player. If I'm going to give up talent, I'd rather do it to where I've got some controllability to offset the fact I'm giving up a prospect that somebody can have for 6 years before they become a free agent. But I do think this is an important year for this franchise. And, you always have more prospects than you think. Than what other people think and what the grading systems say. And so, for me, I think they have to be aggressive. I think they have to go for it now. I think they need to give up as much talent as they can, not mortgaging all of it. Like Mark Shapiro won't do it, because remember, he criticized Alex Anthopoulos for giving everybody up when he did. Now, they went to the playoffs 2 years in a row, and I personally would have been okay with what Alex did. I did it. I gave up prospects. I think prospects can get general managers fired. I wait for this prospect. I don't trade to get a major league player. I don't get the guy that I need to compete. I don't make the playoffs. Then this young guy's going to turn into the star for me. Then he sort of fizzles out a bit. Then he gets hurt. And the next thing you know, I'm out the door because I waited for this, 21-year-old to turn into something. So I want to win now. I don't know what next year is going to bring. So I generally was always more aggressive at the deadline. And my thought was, it's up to us to replenish our farm system. We need to draft well. We need to develop well. Let's go ahead and give what we need to do to win. And let's go find the next round of prospects in the organization.
With Steve Phillips, our TSN Baseball Insider, Chris Bassett on the mound for the Jays tonight. It's been pretty interesting, yet somewhat predictable, I guess, how Gausman, Bassett, and Barrios have been almost, indistinguishable in terms of their stat line and the way the innings pitched. I think all three of them are within 6 innings pitched. Two of them have given up, I want to say, 11 home runs. The other one's given up 12. Barrios got the best ERA, but not by a substantial margin. So, is that when you look at their starting rotation, if they're not going to acquire anyone better than those three guys, how would you feel about those three? Let's say they win the division, end up with a top seed, and they get right into the DS. Games 1, 2, and 3. Is it that simple? It's Barrios, Gausman, and Bassett, and you're happy with that? Where would you stand on that?
Yeah, it's not exactly where I want it to be. I would like to get somebody in front of them. The question is, who is going to be available that slots in front of them? What's the price for that pitcher? In the meantime, the goal is, if I can't find somebody in front of them, I want to shorten the game. I want to be able to take the pressure off, go out there and give me 5 innings, and then give me, because in the playoffs, it's you play a day, you're off. You play another day, you're off. Then you play 2 days, or you play 2 and then you're off. You play 3, you're off. So you can really use your key relievers almost throughout the course of a playoff series, but then you're going to have to really build the depth of that bullpen. And that's probably the direction they're going to have to go, because the competition for impact starting pitching, like Zach Gallen's a great name, but he's got an ERA over 5 this year. I like Merrill Kelly, but I think he's probably a little bit better than the guys that they have right now, the way he's pitched this year, but not dramatic. So he's not going to be a shutdown pitcher necessarily. You got to match up against Skubal or somebody like that. So, they're going to have to really pitch the most quality innings, even if it's not the best at the beginning of the game or maybe the best at the end of the game, but give me the most in between. That's kind of how I built my staffs back in the day. That I had Al Leiter was my ace, Mike Hampton was my ace, but they weren't necessarily, Randy Johnson and those guys back then, Greg Maddux back then, but they were a tick below that. But they still won a lot of games and gave us a chance to win every day. But I wanted to make sure that I had all kinds of bullpen behind them, that no matter what the opposition threw out there, we could match up with them. And I think that may be where you see Ross and Mark Shapiro really go to fortify that bullpen if they can't find that pitcher to go to the front of the rotation.
Jays Giants tonight. I said prior to you coming on, Steve, this feels like the biggest 2 weeks of Ross Atkins' tenure in Toronto, and he's been here for 9 years.